Hi guys, welcome to our streams. It is Friday the 20th of March. We're all feeling a little bit somber at the moment, I think. Just for the purposes of the audio, my name's James. I'm one half of the Planet FPL podcast. I am recording this, so it is intended to go out as an audio later today as well. How this works is essentially we welcome people to join into the chat on YouTube, and I will ask anything that is incoming. I don't really know how much is going to be incoming this afternoon because I suspect everybody's kind of switching off a little bit at the moment. But I wanted to bring you something that will just keep things ticking over a little bit. There's a few things I want to explain in terms of what we're going to be doing with Planet FPL in the coming weeks because our schedule will change somewhat. I am myself personally now isolating. Little man's not too well at the moment, so not taking any chances on it. I don't think it's necessary, particularly for me, to be in work at the moment. It does make Planet FPL a little bit more difficult going forward, but we'll crack on. Jeff Holt's in the chat. He's saying, "Hey James, my theme today will be who am I?" So I'm guessing Jeff wants to bring some trivia for myself. Jeff, don't make him too technical, mate. Remember, this has got to work for audio, pal. But if anybody's got any trivia, I think a few people loved the challenging me last week of Spurs questions in the chat. So by all means, bring that back in. If anybody's got any questions on what I think may happen with anything football-wise, please do obviously join in on the chat. To explain briefly on Planet FPL, we're going to change the schedule a little bit going forwards. Just hold that for 1 second there, guys. So schedule-wise, what we're going to be changing is on Mondays, we're still going to do the main podcast. Probably won't be as long as normal. Obviously, we aren't going to be reviewing game week games, but we're going to treat it very much as an up-to-date. This is the kind of the status of what's happening in the world of football at the moment. And we will invite it very much as an open Q&A on the podcast. So it will become more of a over to you kind of podcast, basically. We're going to move the People's Poll to Tuesdays. So vote-wise, we'll still go out as absolutely normal. Hello, wife. The wife's in the room. Don't worry, you're not on the camera, darling. Yeah, she's working from home as well, which means I can't get shit done, man. We're just taking the opportunity of Harry sleeping at the moment. Tuesday's going to be People's Polls. We're going to move that to Tuesdays. Vote will still go out as normal on Sundays. On Wednesdays, it's now going to be what's been demanded by a lot of you. It's going to be quiz. So I will tend to do this very much. Jeff Holt says, "Hello, Mrs. James." She's the one with the brains in the house. Oh no, she's left the room. I don't have to say that anymore. Yeah, it's probably going to be very much themed in terms of quiz on Wednesdays. I might do it about a particular Premier League season. I might make it an FA Cup quiz, but I want you to have something that's going to be fairly enjoyable. I think the quiz we did on the FPL very previously and the quiz we did at the live show both proved very popular. So really keen to do that. And Thursdays are now going to be throwback Thursdays, where we're going to look at something previously in history. It may be a major story from the past. It may be a particular football season. This was Suj's idea, so I'm prepared to run with it. We may well even go into a situation where we do the quiz Wednesday and then discuss whatever that theme was for the quiz in more detail on the Thursday. We're going to have a little look at that, but that's how we're going to run going forward. And I will still do this on Fridays if there's enough people in the chat. But I do need your questions, guys, on anything. Otherwise, this doesn't work. So maneuvers, I've learned better than to challenge you on Spurs scores. True. A few people fed back from last week's pod that I'm a little bit of a freak. I'm okay with that. I am a little bit of a freak when it comes to Spurs knowledge. That's the other thing I did want to mention, actually. Shout out to the guys who are running this Championship Manager FPL game from the 2001-2002 season. I will be taking part. A few people have asked if we're going to be doing it as a podcast. That's not the intention, because I hope that football will restart before the game finishes, which is one of the major reasons for not going down that route. Plus, I don't think that Suj is going to have the time to play. But I'll be doing, certainly giving my comments on Twitter, and I may even do some vids starting from today in terms of my thoughts on that. So yeah, get on that. It's a great little idea. It's probably something that's going to run over about 19 weeks or so. Format is going to be very FPL based on a simulation of the 2001-2002, a very popular Championship Manager game. And I think the guys who are getting involved in that have absolutely locked down the idea. It's a brilliant initiative, and I hope everybody cracks on and gets involved in that. Can't recommend it enough. Jeff Holt has some trivia. So he says, I was born in 1971 and played MF, I presume it's midfield. Joined Spurs in 1996, playing 5 years and scoring 12 goals. I left Spurs to go to Watford in 2002. That sounds like Alan Nilsson, scorer of the late goal in the 1999 Worthington Cup final. I think that's right. He was a average midfielder, Alan Nilsson, but a worker. You could rely on him. He was someone who could play in multiple positions across the midfield. He'd play him out wide. He wasn't tricky enough to beat a man one-on-one, but he'd go and do the job for people. Good player, Danish. Kind of got him off the back of being part of Denmark's Euro 96 squad, I believe. I think that's the right answer. Otherwise, I'm just chatting rubbish, aren't I, Jeff? Lee's in the house from FPL family. What's up, mate? Hope you and the family all staying safe. Yeah, we're good. We're good. Harry's not been at his best this week, but he's fine. Me and the wife feel absolutely fine. I hope you and Sam are well, Lee, and I hope when the time is right, you'll do a stream, because as I said to you, you don't need FPL to do a stream. Your people will just want to see how you are on that. So get it done, mate. Jeff and Lee obviously welcoming each other in the chat. Maneuver says, any question on FPL obviously comes with a caveat that it's not important in the grand scheme of things, but thoughts on FPL and how it's going ahead with the rest of the season. So I'm not going to do a lot of FPL on this because it's absolute waste of time. Situation is, we now know that essentially the game week deadlines, which the FPL one is 7 o'clock UK time tonight, are going to go ahead. If you don't do anything, you're going to score 0 points. I presume now, surely nobody can be scoring -4s like there were a few hit takers last week. It leaves us in a position where currently on schedule, the game will restart in game week 36. Now, whether you make transfers or not, it's up to you. I probably will make a transfer, but I really don't think it matters, and I'll explain why. Let's take the hypothetical example that game week 36 is when we restart. I have free hit, wild card, and bench boost still in hand. Now, essentially, for those of us with a wild card, it really doesn't matter, and I'll tell you why. Because if it restarts us then, and we end up with essentially what will obviously be probably double game weeks of 36, 37, and then everything else on the way of game week 38, which is how the game runs, then I'm probably going to go free hit 36, wildcard 37, and bench boost 38. So even the transfers I'd make up to it are just completely immaterial. I think for those who don't have the wild card, yeah, fix some shit out on the odd chance that we're going to restart in game week 36, but we're not. I don't think we'll even be restarting by what would have been our scheduled game week 38, unfortunately. And whether that means they relaunch the game, it starts from scratch, I think that's a possibility. I really don't know what's going to happen, but I wouldn't worry about it. I mean, I might make a shit transfer to fix something on my bench, or might even leave some money spare. There's no point in me even saying who to target or anything. It's a complete waste of time. We know that Villa, Sheffield United, Arsenal, Man City have one extra fixture on the rest. That's all we know. We don't know how the European calendar is going to work. So it could be, for example, that we'd walk straight back in. You think, oh yeah, City and Arsenal got an extra fixture, but City play in Europe, and then Villa, Sheffield United straight away got a double. There's loads of different ways it could work. We'd all just be purely speculating, and I think it's a waste of time. It's a shame that they've not been able to manoeuvre the idea that the game be paused. However, I also don't know if they're in a position where suddenly they can add on to game week 38, and we're in a position we've got game weeks running up to game week 49 when it restarts. I think it's pure speculation. I think if you've got 2 free transfers, yeah, by all means make one. But if you're asking me who, I ain't got a clue. Just get rid of whoever's the worst player on your team if you want. But like I said, for those with a wild card, I don't even know if it's worthwhile. I will do it purely on the basis that there is a possibility that they could extend the game with extra game weeks, perhaps running up to 49. And therefore, the idea of going, say, free hit 36, wildcard 37, bench boost 38 is then non-optional. And I'll wish that I've probably had made a few transfers. So I'm almost just slowly wildcarding. And that's probably the advice. Do what you like with it. There's certainly no rights and wrongs. Maneuver says they can't freeze it potentially. That seems to be part of the problem. Is that it seems absolutely ridiculous, but I'm not into the technology or understand why that's not been viable in any way. But yeah, that's where it's at. Louis Purcell says, "Hey James, just what I need this afternoon. About to get my cardio session in. There ain't no cardio happening in this house, mate." Jeff Holt says that Alan Nielsen was correct. Thank you very much, mate. Much appreciated. That won't be going in the quiz for Wednesday. Bradley Parker, our Wolves correspondent. Poor Bradley, who was on yesterday. I think yesterday's clash of correspondence with Bradley and Neil Grover, our Bournemouth correspondent, was outstanding. I really do. They came in unprepared. I said to them, look, it's not going to be an FPL chat. Let's just talk about football and how we feel as fans and that. And I think it was really good. Bradley is isolating. He thinks he has it. Bless him. So please give Bradley some love. You can see on my timeline on Twitter. It'll be easy enough to find. Bradley says, someone published a list of all the Premier League managers based on their fighting ability. Eddie Howe was 8th. Who's your top 4 and bottom 3? Tough question, I know, but fun, I guess. I love that, actually, Bradley. That's really cool. Oh, my gosh. Who wouldn't you want to have a ruck with manager-wise? I think Nuno's one. Your boy, Bradley. I don't think I'd want to be taking on Nuno. Let's fighting powers. I think Mikel Arteta's probably got a bit of a nasty streak about him. Mourinho would be a right pussy. I wouldn't worry about Jose. Frank Lampard fancies himself a bit too much, doesn't he? Pep, I reckon Pep could look after himself, actually. Brendan Rodgers, no, you'd fancy it. Chris Wilder, I wouldn't want to take on because he wouldn't give a shit. He'd be like, yeah, you might beat me up, but first punch, you're going to die. I think that would be his take on it. Ollie, little baby face, you could take him on, couldn't you? Yeah, I think the first one that sprung to mind is actually Nuno. I wouldn't want to have a ruck with Nuno Santo. David Moyes might be one who'd give it his good, actually. Very old school, having played kind of football in the early 90s, late 80s was really his career, wasn't it? Chiansky says it's not going to be void. I'm really afraid to say that. I think what the Premier League done's right, just give themselves more time. One of the things I said on one of the pods earlier the week in terms of reschedulement of calendar, they're really going to be dictated by UEFA. If UEFA say Champions League fixtures are going here, the Premier League will have to work around that. I don't think, honestly, that we'll be starting football before July, I'm afraid to say. That's my personal opinion. I really hope that the world gets in a better place and I'm wrong. But I just can't see how we restart. Let's say we restart in May behind the closed doors. Needs one player to get ill again, and that's it. We're shut down for 2 weeks and we recycle and we go again. I think football can only restart when it's absolutely, completely safe. And I think that probably means fans in the ground. And if that means we don't play till September, October, some are even suggesting next year, then so be it. I wouldn't rule out the possibility that we play the games that were scheduled for now exactly at this time next year. I really wouldn't rule that out. And then sort of early winter, if we're ready to go, hopefully some of the big clubs can go and play some of these struggling lower league clubs and give them some financial security. I think there is stuff behind the scenes going on in terms of financial packages to try and help these clubs. The case now is different to what happened with Bury. Bury was obviously terrible in terms of that football club got lost, and we probably will do a follow-up pod on Bury within the next couple of months. But this is different. This is a global crisis that's putting so many clubs at risk, and I think there is a responsibility being felt from higher treading down that we've got to save these football clubs. It's no one's fault in terms of what's happening at the moment. So I think there is stuff going on behind the scenes that's going to be put into place to help some of these clubs. It was fascinating listening to Gary Neville on Sky Sports News last night, because he's obviously involved with what's a controversial ownership of Salford City, who are one of the smaller clubs in the Football League, but because they have the backing of the class of 92, obviously don't have any financial concerns at the moment. They're not self-sufficient and dependent on gate receipts, which so many of these football clubs are at the moment. It's unquestionable, in my opinion, that if there is no help and there's no football for 6 months, that some of these clubs like Oldham and Cambridge, as Neil mentioned on COTC yesterday, are going to go to the wall. But I'm quite hopeful that there will be some help. I saw a stat that the Premier League clubs, in terms of tax, pay 3.3 billion over a 12-month period, which is an astronomical amount. If you think about that, that is 1% of the money that the government is pledging to help fund businesses with at the moment. That's how important the role of the giants of English football are in terms of helping the others. And I think there will be some sort of solidarity agreement to spread the cost. What can't happen is, for example, when Bury went, a lot of people say, oh, why don't Manchester United just go and save Bury? The problem with that is that's all well and good. And I'm sure a club like Manchester United would have wanted to get involved. But then you can't, if then it happens to Oldham, you go, oh, Manchester United going to save Oldham. There has to be some levelling, whereas I think perhaps here, between the Premier League, between sponsors, between the clubs, they can put a pool of fund together that then gets spread to who needs what. Some clubs will need more than others. I know the National League clubs are trying to get up with which is the 5th tier of English football, are trying to come up with joint ideas in terms of how much money they all need between them for that to be spread. That's one way of doing it. But then the higher up the leagues you go, the more disparity you get in that. So if you take an example of Portsmouth and Coventry are similar sized clubs, really, who are both doing okay in League One at the moment. But the need for Coventry to have resources is probably far greater than Portsmouth's. Portsmouth's got a solid fan base, 18,000, etc. In terms of merchandising coming, there'll be things that will help. Coventry don't even have a football home at the moment. They've been playing at Birmingham City. So I think the higher up you get, the more individual cases you get. Many of the championship clubs will be absolutely fine, but some, like there's an ongoing issue with Charlton Athletic that we want to explore, where they're probably going to need some sort of immediate help because there's a crisis there with the ownership. So there's going to be many individual cases. I hope there's going to be some funds coming from above that are going to help support these clubs. And I actually am beginning to think, reading between the lines, that there will be. Brad Lewington says, hi, James, not a fantasy question, but I'm curious to hear what you think. If the season was played out as normal, how would you feel the European competitions would have went winners? Well, I think Manchester City would be strong favourites for the Champions League if we just continue on the path as is. And I think Europa League-wise, I really would fancy Wolves. I'm not even joking when I say that. It's something I've maintained for a long time this season, that they'll be so well suited to that football. I think if you can imagine it restarts, and suddenly if Wolves get to the quarterfinals, or even if they restart with that second leg with Olympiacos, the atmosphere at Molineux will be so powerful. So I really think actually those two English clubs would have a strong chance. I think with Liverpool going out, it really opens the door to say City are the best team in it. I would argue with anybody who thinks Juventus, Barca and Madrid are better. I think the main challengers will probably be Bayern Munich, actually. I think that would be a great final. I suspect the Champions League will go to one-off ties. I do think there is some credibility towards the idea of finishing the second legs of the last 16 as soon as possible and then throwing the rest into a one-week tournament at the end. I suspect that's possible. And presumably they would go to the host cities of where the final is due to be. So for the Champions League, that would be Turkey, Istanbul. Poland's final is due to be in Gdansk. I don't know if they would then spread that tournament to other cities such as Warsaw or Krakow, for example. But I think City for the Champions League, Bayern Munich the main challengers, and I really fancy Wolves in that Europa. Inter Milan will be strong if they can get themselves into a strong position. They've got such a headache with fixtures. They would probably be the main UEFA challengers, I'd say. Ricky Saunders, my Spurs boy, says, hello, mate. Hope all is well with you and yours. We are good, Ricky, and I hope you are too, mate. Avoided football season here as Spurs fans. It would be majorly beneficial to us, but I think most of you will have followed my comments and know this football season has to be finished. Sabisi1 says, I was born in South Africa and I played for Spurs and Everton. Must be Stephen Pienaar, I believe. I don't believe there's been another one. Lee says, from family, we will stream soon, mate. Sam has a lot of CV Simpsons right now. Not feeling great, so once she's better, we'll stream. Much love, Lee. Send my love to Sam. I hope the kids are well and that as well. Stay safe. I'll put it out there now in front of everybody. Me and you can do something if you want. Invite us on. We'll have a chit chat. We could have a chat about Spurs and Liverpool's glorious runs to last season's Champions League final, and I will just leave the conversation as soon as you start talking about the final. Maneuver says, topics to discuss, players, teams who will either benefit from the delayed Euros or have a disadvantage from it. I don't think there's any real way of knowing, Maneuver, who will benefit from it. It could be that we restart and Sheffield United, for example, fall off a cliff and they're just not the same sides. It could be that one of the struggling sides, I don't know, maybe Brighton would suddenly put together what some of their performances have deserved and find winning games back to back, which would get them out of trouble. Form's gone. Once this football season, or if this football season restarts, there's no form. Forget the previous 29 games. There's no way of knowing what's going to happen. There's anybody be looking and going, over the last 4 game weeks, Aubameyang did. Forget it. It'd be like starting a brand new season when it comes around. Really, really difficult to say. I think some will be in different frames of mood set to others. So you could take and say Spurs are obviously in a bad place at the moment with the morale around the club, but actually a big break could completely re-energize how everybody feels about the football club. I don't think as and when we go back and play football, no one's going to go into Spurs in a bad mood. It's going to be positive, and then you've got to react off that positive energy, and hopefully you'll pick a back 4 and allow the crowd to get involved with a team that wants to attack and play football. Andrew Baker says, keep the streams going. I will do, mate. I will do. For the streams, I need people in it and I need people talking in it. Otherwise, this doesn't work because I'm not coming in with any script or anything. Edwin Guan says, hello, James. Do the toilet roll challenge. Stay safe. Okay. Do you know what? I'm not going to do that right now, but maybe. Let's see if I can maybe do that. Yeah, fuck it. Let's do that. I wouldn't expect to get more than 5 or so. Yeah, I'll do that at some point over the weekend. I'll do the toilet challenge, and once it's done, I'll nominate Lee from FPL family to do it as well. And Lee says, any key players that will be back from injury June, July timeframe? David Brooks, Pogba. Yeah, those 2. I mean, looks like Pogba. I don't know. Has he fixed his problems at United? It's difficult to say. And David Brooks will be pivotal to Bournemouth, certainly. And obviously Spurs. I'm going to restart with Kane, Son, Sissoko, all fit, but it could even be Bergwijn's fit as well, depending on, I presume they will. Hopefully players won't pick up injuries during this period. I think one side that will definitely benefit is Spurs, probably going to come back with a full strength side. Andrew Baker says, bought in Sheffield United players last 2 weeks. Faults if we ever start again. It's fine. I mean, they're probably one of the better ones to go to just on the basis they've got 1 extra game left. But if you've got your wild card, Andrew, listen to what I said later. It just might be a complete waste of time, mate. Jeff Holt has more Who Am I trivia. He says, I was born in 1978 in Liverpool. My youth career was at Spurs, graduating to senior squad in 1997. I played 91 games for Spurs, scoring 2 goals. I played for 2 Midland clubs after leaving Spurs in 2003. Oh, kids that came through for Spurs in 1997. He was born in Liverpool. So he would have been, 19-ish at that age? God, we had a shit team there, mate. That's tough. Scored 2 goals, 91 games. See, I hate these ones when I don't know it because it's all right for the YouTube. It makes it bloody bad for the audio later. Who did we have? Shit, man. I can't even think of any kids that come through for Spurs at that time. Proper ropey. I don't know, Jeff. You might have me there on that. I can't even fit Spurs players with Scouse accents or anything. Lee saying thanks for COTC. It was excellent. Appreciate that, mate. Oh, Sean Dyche, of course. Yeah, he would batter anyone, wouldn't he? Yeah. Sorry, Bradley. I'm gonna have to put Sean Dyche at the top of it. Yeah, I'd like to see Sean Dyche and Nuno in the octagon. That's the sort of pay-per-view content the world needs right now. Jeff Holtadz also thinks obviously Dyche would be tough. Yeah, he'd put you off with that gravelly voice just to start with, wouldn't he? Rob Pick, 86. I'm not going to say he's well involved in CM0102 game, but he might be well involved. It says Hasselbank or Viduka. Here we go. Henry or Van Nistelrooy, Joe Cole or Lauren Robert, Ian Hart or Ashley Cole, hashtag ChampmanFPL. If you don't want any of my tweets on the Championship Manager game, I will be using that hashtag for all of my tweets, hashtag ChampmanFPL. So you can just mute that and then they'll get hidden. Hasselbank or Viduka is a really tough call, Rob. I think both are capable of really excelling. Will probably do similarly well. I think Hasselbank probably has the slightly higher ceiling, but it's close. I'd probably favour Hasselbank. So there's probably more assets elsewhere that favour that I would have more interest in from Leeds United, actually. On Henry, on Van Nistelrooy, that they're both 13 million. It's very much a toss for coin. Again, I suspect from a goal scoring perspective, Van Nistelrooy probably has a slightly higher ceiling, bearing in mind this is the summer of 2001 we're talking about. But he obviously has competition for places with the likes of Dwight York. Andy Cole is still there. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is still there. And Henry probably has a greater capacity in terms of assists, etc. So I think that's a very close call. And obviously, he'll be the outstanding one for Arsenal. I think probably just Van Nistelrooy. Joe Cole or Laurent Robert. I would probably prefer Laurent Robert. I think Newcastle were one of the sides in the game at that period where Bobby Robson had come in. He's got them sorted, safe from relegation. They've been adding players like Craig Bellamy, Laurent Robert. And I think Newcastle, if there was to be a dark horse in that game to push the top four, it probably is them. Ian Hart or Ashley Cole, I'd definitely say Ian Hart, purely because it looks like the game will start and Ian Hart might well be the most owned players, just looking around comments on Twitter. He's obviously a set piece taker for Leeds, free kicks, corners. He could possibly be on the penalties as well. And at this stage, Leeds are probably third or fourth favourites with the bookies for the title going back to that period. So Ian Hart will be popular. There are some exceptional picks from Leeds. Nigel Martin is 5 million. Paul Robinson might get the spot. It's 4.5 million as a goalkeeper. You've mentioned Viduka. I think Jonathan Woodgate, if he plays, is also 4.5 million. There's some exceptional prospects from Leeds in that game. I suspect I will start with 3 of them. And for a lot of people, everything I just said would have made no sense whatsoever. And I said I wouldn't talk about it on a podcast, and I just have. Maneuver. Pearson Shorley with the Pack of Wolves story. Oh, of course. Nigel Pearson, your ostrich in the sand. Yeah. If you've never seen that Nigel Pearson ostrich in the sand interview, you have to see it. Yeah, Nigel Pearson would be right up there. So this has now become triple threat in the octagon, I think. Nigel Pearson. I wonder if Hassan Hootel could handle himself, actually. Might be one. Bradley saying, thanks, FPL family. Good to hear. Nuno Wilder, Dyche, and I reckon Jurgen Klopp would be tough. He's massive. Paul Roy at the bottom for me with Brendan and Ollie. Jurgen, of course, would be in there, but I wonder if he talks a better game than he really is. I'd favour the other 3 more, I think. Jeff's got another one. Born in 1944. Jesus, Jeff. Spent 12 years at Spurs. Used to hit nice ones, and I bet you can sing a little. Hey, nice one, Cyril. Nice one, son. I'm going to think that might be Cyril Knowles there, mate. Beals Bob. Is there any coherent strategy for using our FPL FTs, given that we've no idea what the fixture will be like and when it all kicks back off? Go back, mate. No, nobody knows what's going to happen. Don't stress about it. Yeah, if you've got 2 FTs, use one. There's no tips in terms of where to use it. There's no right, there's no wrong. Do what you like with it, mate. let's not be having the FPL questions in the chat, guys. It's just a waste of time. Let's talk football and try and have a laugh. Jeff Holt said, maybe get Lee's help here on the previous one. I'm MBE, born in Wales, 1949. I'm 6'1" and scored 74 goals for Liverpool in the 70s. Go on, Lee. I'll leave that one to you, mate. You can join in and tell. Maneuver by advantage, disadvantage from delayed Euros in my earlier question. I mean, Euro 2000, 2021. England having players back fit. Netherlands another year to get better, etc. And players a year older. That's the same for everybody, isn't it? So I think that there's probably advantages for a lot of nations, except some that may have some aging players. I mean, Ronaldo is a phenomenon, isn't he? But the tournament being a year later is probably not beneficial to Portugal, for example. But it would probably benefit most. The thing is, it's all right saying, yeah, England will have players back fit. This time next year, England will have different injuries. So will the others. I think the problem for the Netherlands will be unearthing a goal scorer. If they unearth a goal scorer, they will have a fantastic chance in that tournament. I'm just not sure that Memphis Depay is going to do what's necessary for them as and when it comes around at the moment. Jeff Holt informs me that Spurs one was Stephen Clements. Yes, of course, son of legendary goalkeeper Ray Clements, who played for Spurs and Liverpool. He was a tidy enough footballer, Stephen. He's assistant for someone, isn't he? Is he at Steve Bruce with Newcastle, possibly Stephen Clements? I think so. I think he's followed Steve Bruce around quite a bit. He was a decent footballer. I remember him quite a bit at Birmingham once he left Spurs. FPL telling Josh, afternoon, James. Hope you're keeping well, buddy. Yes, I am, mate, and I hope you are too. Bradley says the Wolves players will have had a long period of rest after a long season. Do you think it's going to benefit them when we finally return? I think we play better with regular games. Well, you know best, Bradley, and I think you're probably right. I think Wolves are such an unusual case in terms of they don't seem to want to rotate the squad so much, and have really kind of nailed down this Thursday-Sunday thing without overdoing the squad and retaining a fairly structured lineup. So I think you're right, Bradley. I'm not sure that the break will do Wolves much good. Sabisi's back with, I presume, a further CM0102 question. Berbatov versus Tevez, Giggs versus Pires. Well, no, Berbatov and Tevez wouldn't be part of that game. I guess you're just asking generally which player. I mean, I'd favour Berbatov, but that's very, very biased. I think there was a period where, probably actually when Berbatov went to United, that Carlos Tevez was probably in the top 5 strikers in Europe for a very small period of time. Giggs and Perez, I think for longevity, you've got to say Ryan Giggs, haven't you? But Robert Perez around about that period, 2002 to 04, was absolutely outstanding for Arsenal. He was one of those players who really I did fear. He knew he could tear me apart instantly. So I probably feared Perez more than Giggs. But then with United, throughout that whole period, particularly obviously through the 90s and then the early 90s, did so many different weapons. You didn't really have time to fear one player. I'm not saying Arsenal didn't, but Arsenal, the real fear was Perez, Bergkamp, Henry at various different times. United was the whole team. You know, if you let Gary Neville come up high up the pitch with Beckham, Gary Neville could deliver a great cross. It could hit you from so many different places. So just Giggs, although I think in that short period, Perez sort of 02 to 04 he was top draw. FPL Badger on Norwich correspondent is in the chat. He says, hello, James and everyone. Good to see so many familiar names here in these strange times. If you could sign any Norwich player for Spurs next season, who would it be? Mark, my friend, I think you know the answer to that would be Max Aarons. You haven't got any holding midfield players that particularly interest me, so I then immediately look at the fullbacks. Aarons has been mass linked with Spurs in any case. I suspect Max Aarons, even if Norwich stayed up, probably won't be at Norwich next year. Judging by, with respect, Mark, the model of the football club seems to be that they're a bit, they're very wary of how much funding they're putting into that football club at the moment. And I think Aarons is probably the most sellable asset from that perspective. He's a very young age. I think he's 19, about to turn 20. And there's a lot of clubs looking at him. I would worry about his height. I think it's one of the things that really has hurt Kyle Walker-Peters at Spurs. And I think Aarons is a better talent than KWP. It's becoming a more dangerous trait as a fullback if you're quite short. Now, he's 19, so he could well fill out a little bit. but he's pretty aggressive going forward. The other thing that could restrict him is go and play for, again, a club that's going to have more territorial advantage. If he can't get in behind down that flank, does that impact him as a footballer? So I think it would be beneficial for him to play for a side that was happy to break quickly. And in time, that might actually be Spurs. It's probably not at the moment. Ricky Saunders got the correct answer there on Stephen Clements. Jeff says, finally, I've scored 51 goals for Spurs in 151 games since 2015. I presume that is our friend, the great Heung-min Son, who we can't wait to see. I saw, who was it listening to? I was Tom, Nick and Stag was listening to the other day. And Nick was saying that if you got isolated with someone, it'd be Son. He's a nice chap. But couldn't really define much more than that why he wanted to be Son. I think I'd prefer to have someone with me who'd look after me a little bit more. FPO telling Josh, are we talking about a fight in the octagon? Surely only one winner, Big Dunk. Yeah, but Duncan Ferguson's not mad. I wouldn't fancy Ancelotti, particularly in the current climate, bless. They're all safe up there in Merseyside after they let 3,000 Spaniards in there, which they really shouldn't have done. No offence to anyone Spanish, but you know what I'm saying. They couldn't attend the game in their own country, but 3,000 would go over to Merseyside. Yeah, Duncan Ferguson would right have it, though. Absolutely. I knew you meant Duncan Ferguson and not Lewis Dunk. Yeah, that would be a little bit strange. Jeff Holt confirms that Cyril Knowles was the correct answer. Sabisi, which team has the better owners? Daniel Levy versus the Glazers? Which, it's us, absolutely. It's definitely us. Hey, little man, come here. Come here. Come and say hello to YouTube people. 1 sec. Come here. Yeah. Say hello. What's the matter, mate? See? Real world people. He just wanted a cuddle. I would say that Daniel Levy is better than the Glazers because United should have been powering money properly into people. They've got bad management at the top level. Daniel Levy just wants the best for Spurs. He just doesn't really know how to spend that money, unfortunately. Harry, you can't do all that. Cheers, mate. The Spurs are probably in a position where new ownership is something that's going to be considered over the next 5 to 10 years or so. But I think that's probably once stadium naming rights and stuff like that's in place. Harry, you whinging is really not going to come out great on the audio, you know. All right? Thanks, mate. I'm going to go back to Mum. Love you, mate. Go. Right, where were we? Ricky Saunders, Delhi. Or is that just a disgust, mate? I think Delhi is an expendable asset for Spurs. I think there's... he's one of the ones who Spurs can dig value out of still. On reputation alone, Ricky. And I think, unfortunately, I'm beginning to think we've seen the best of Delhi. One of the things I wanted to talk about a few weeks back was the idea that some footballers are now peaking at a very young age, 20, 21. And I think that's what's happened to Delhi with injuries. Delhi's not as good a footballer as Delhi thinks he is. I've said that so many times. He's best player. He's one of the best on the planet in terms of his movement, his arriving in the box and stuff. I don't want to see him in centre midfield. He's an offensive 10 and not in terms of a link up like an Ozil or an Ericsson or someone like that. He's someone to get in and support. You think of everything good about Delhi. It's getting close to Harry Kane. Those two as a real partnership. And when Harry wants to drop deep into feet, that Delhi's the one that can then bring it into the box. They had a very good understanding. I think in terms of where Spurs want to refinance and go, Ricky, I think Delhi's expendable, personally. I think the only clubs that would probably pay the big money now are probably overseas clubs. I don't think it'd be of interest to English clubs at the moment. I think he would have been when he burst on the scene, but what would Liverpool want with him now? And I think that would be the case for a lot of other clubs. United wouldn't be interested now with Bruno Fernandes and possibly Pogba coming back. Can't see where, say, a Chelsea would have an interest. So I think it would be an overseas, and that's where Spurs could probably maximise the money in selling him. I love him. I want him to recapture the form that he'd shown previously, but at the moment he's well away from that at the moment. Jeff Holt says, thanks for answering the trivia. You're very welcome, mate. No problem at all. Oh, it was Dele Alli 50 from 153, not Heung-min Son. Oh, Son is correct. The LFC player, I don't know where he's gone, was John Toshak. Sabisi says, who is a better United manager between David Moyes and Ollie? Statistics say Moyes. I don't know how Ollie is still in a job. What do you think? Well, I've always been of the opinion that Solskjaer is kind of dead man walking in that job and there's no way out for him, and that Pochettino will be in charge whenever this new football season comes around. But they've been better, haven't they, recently? And I think like to suddenly shut him out the door now would be controversial, certainly, to say the least. So at the moment, he's staying in the job. Which one's the better manager of the two? Well, I think in terms of what's actually been done at United between the two, it's probably Solskjaer, actually, because Moyes needed to go in there and completely reset. Ferguson knew that they needed a reset, and Moyes didn't do it, signing Fellaini and stuff, and maybe he wasn't backed by the board, etc. But some of the players that Solskjaer's brought in, Wan-Bissaka, Harry Maguire, Daniel James, obviously now Bruno Fernandes, you can see that there is, although sometimes there isn't so much of a structure into United's play, you can see there's a philosophy building in terms of their transfer strategy. And I think you'll continue to see that going forward, that they've now identified that they, a little bit like what Spurs have done, want to make stars rather than buy stars. And that's probably come from the top a little bit, being burnt by, if they think they've been burnt by the Pogba money, but probably more so, obviously, with the Alexis Sanchez money and the fact they're obviously still contributing a huge amount in wages to Alexis Sanchez while he's at Inter Milan. Andrew Martin says, good afternoon. Hello, Andrew. Andrew is very much involved with this launch of the CM0102 game for FPL. Andrew, thanks for coming on. Much appreciate what you're doing at the moment. Must follow their FPL tactician, our man. Bradley says, how much do you think Bruno will be at the start of next season? Personally, I don't mind paying whatever price. I think he's top drawer and has the makings of set and forget. I think depends how much what we finish with, but let's assume that we've voided and we finish now. I think there's every chance that through popularity alone and also being a Manchester United player, that Bruno Fernandes could well start next season at 10 million. I think more than that would be excessive unless he completely tears it up when FPL is, or the football season is restarted. But I think from now, if the season restarts, you look at him with the 8.5 is he at the moment. You won't be getting that price again next season. So I think he's the sort of one, if you're just burning your free transfers at the moment, just to the sake of it, and he's not in your squad, my thoughts are probably built towards getting him in just for the sake of it. But yeah, I expect him to be at a higher price next season. Be interesting to see what the impact is when Pogba's back. I assume Pogba would go and play in a deeper line role with a Fred or McTominay or who be it. I'd love to see them go and play 4-1-4-1 with Pogba and Fernandes really allowed to express himself. Because I think actually, particularly McTominay, actually, I think Fred has had a brilliant season. I think McTominay could really develop in that sort of 4-1-4-1 system as the one just feeding into a two and protecting the flank. And the 4-1-4-1 is beneficial because there's a responsibility then on the two wide players to do their work defensively, which will protect those two a little bit. Because you want them in the areas that's going to hurt people. Now, someone like Rashford and possibly Daniel James on the right-hand side, they will do the work defensively. And then spring high, great. Jean Linden is in the chat. You might recognise the name. She said she wants a cuddle. I want a cuddle too, Mum. We miss you, mate. Little sight, the little one there. Jeff Holt. Yeah, for little man. Yeah. Maneuver. Hello, Harry. FPL, lucky FPL. Is Harry really in red and white? Kid's got better taste than his dad. Hope you know all the family are well, mate. I'm dead against those pajamas, mate, like massively. But someone bought them for him, and he's got like Harry printed on the front, and that's I'm not happy about it. But you know, being fussy, mate. He ain't never fucking wearing anything again that's gonna be red. I'll put my foot down. Andrew Martin, in the Champman fantasy game, do you think Viduka is underpriced at 10 million? we had disagreements, and I thought he should be 11 million. Well, that makes me want to buy him at 10 million a little bit then, Andrew. Yes, he might be. He might well be undervalued at that price. I think because of his consistency. I presume you'll know better than me, Andrew, but I presume they'll probably start the season with him and Robbie Keane. I think Robbie Keane's quite attractive as well from Leeds at that price. I don't know. I did some really interesting ones, Andrew. I can't profess that I properly delved in hard into all the pricing yet, but Viduka is certainly on the shortlist. From simulations that other people have done, it does look like the likes of Viduka and Hasselbank and other people in that price bracket do have the capability to potentially be matching Henry and Van Nistelrooy, etc. But I feel like I'd want one of those two guys up front as a regular captaincy option. But I'm glad you had the disagreement and have shared that with me, Andrew, because you'll know the data better than me. So 10 million seems more right to me. I'll be very honest. Sabisi 1, top 5 Netflix series. Planet FPL, Fly on the Wall. That'd be interesting at the moment, wouldn't it? DJ Newton's in, says hello, says hopes everyone's well. Joe Finley Badder says, what's your favourite football film? Oh, it's got to be Escape to Victory, isn't it? Yeah, probably that. I mean, football films, generally speaking, have not been great, have they? If we're honest. They never quite work out. He had When Saturday Comes with Sean Bean, Sheffield United. I'm sure the Blades guys will like that. Mean Machine, Vinnie Jones is all right. I mean, yeah, not great. Right, we'll begin to finish it up, guys, because I can see that chat-wise, there's not a huge amount going on. Jeff Holt says, James, what percentage age of his ability do you think Gaza fulfilled? Oof. Probably about 80%. I think Paul Gascoigne was in a position after Italia 90 that, were it not for injuries, etc., when he went to Lazio, he should have been in a position then where he was beginning to push on for sort of World Player of the Year and that kind of thing, and just completely hamstrung by injuries and his own obsessive nature, which led him, unfortunately, to do things that a modern footballer, I think, wouldn't do. I think Paul Gascoigne, with better understanding now, with all the nutrition, health stuff, etc., would be one of the best footballers in the world right now, and he was then around about sort of 1991, etc. Terrible shame. I find it very sad to see him now. I hope he's in a good place. I think the majority, I even speak to Gooners, everyone's like, I hope Paul Gascoigne's all right. Whenever he comes up in conversation, I think everybody's got that love and respect for him. I just want to see him sort his life out properly. Hopefully he's in a good place at the moment. Maneuver says, second favourite sport, was it all about football? Probably is all about football. There's nothing else sport-wise that I religiously watch. I don't know if you would classify poker as a sport. In terms of participation for myself, would be like a pool or a snooker. I used to play snooker quite a bit in my younger days. Used to need a spider for every other shot, obviously, but used to enjoy it. I don't mind a bit of pool when I've had a few drinks, but yeah, I'm not fantastic at it. I'll give anyone an half decent game. Yeah, probably those to watch. I mean, it's seasonal. I make an effort to watch snooker when the Worlds are on, which obviously would have been next month. If the Rugby World Cup's on, I'm not so bothered about like the Six Nations and stuff. It's just every year. Tennis, you have a look around Wimbledon, but I'm not Andy Murray's biggest fan, although poor bugger's done his hip bad, hasn't he? I don't think we play him much more often. I watched a bit of cricket last summer. I enjoyed, obviously, the bits of the action I watched with Stokes today, and obviously the final with New Zealand. I did watch all of that. That was fantastic. That was probably the best sport I watched last year, bar Spurs' winning Ajax. That was thrilling to watch. But I am 99% football, I'm afraid, mate. FPL, lucky FPL, Harry does not like FIFA pitch. You know, you can go off people very quickly, mate. We will finish on Bradley Parker. If Man City end up banned from Europe next season, what do you think will be the 3 most likely players to go? Well, Kevin De Bruyne would be the first thereafter. think Raheem Sterling's not quite sorted out a potential contract issue. I think he would still appeal to the likes of Real Madrid, etc. I don't think they'd lose too many players, City. I really don't. I have to say as well, I think one potential option on City at the moment with what's going on in the climate is that because I mean, the appeal and how that's going to happen, that's a whole different issue. I think there's every chance that if we get football calendar to a position where our next season would start as planned, then I'd suspect that Man City will be allowed in and the appeal would be heard the following year. I think that's probably a high possibility at the moment with the way circumstances are, which I'm afraid is probably bad news for those thinking that fifth will be enough. I suspect that it probably will not be. And on that bombshell, that leads me to say, have a good weekend and ciao for now. Everybody stay safe, keep clean, protect vulnerable people, stop buying and overloading on toilet roll and shit. Like, listen, if world goes to fuck, you'll need food more than you need toilet paper. We'll all be using the back end of a shower like we would use a bidet, right? So don't worry about toilet roll and shit. Make sure old people have got soap. Make sure kids are allowed to get Calpol and stuff. Let's look after each other. Most of them, be nice to each other. I still see dickheads trolling on Twitter. Like, get a life. Seriously, it doesn't bother me, but just be nice to each other. It doesn't cost anything at the moment. We need to pull together as a human race and get ourselves in the right place. And the sooner we do that, the sooner we get our football back. Anyway, thanks to those who joined in the chat. I know there's nothing particularly to go on and talk about. As I said, Monday, we will be back with Planet FPL Series 3 episode, whatever the hell it is. It will be very Q&A based, and that's how it's going to be going forward. People's Poll will be moving to Tuesdays. Wednesdays, I will be doing a quiz. Thursday will be Thursday Throwback, where we will look at something historically in football. Fridays, I will continue doing this. That is going to be our theme of how we're going to work while this is ongoing in the short term. We then, when football restarts, we'll be powering hard more, I promise, genuinely. On that note, have a good weekend. Be nice to everybody. Ciao for now. Cue music, man child.